Why does no one in my family live past 50? My mom turned 49 last week, and my grandmother, Delilah, immediately moved her into the transition suite on the 3rd floor of our family's mansion. Your mother needs peace and comfort for her final year, Delilah told me, her eyes lingering on the massive wall of framed photographs in the main hallway. Every single person on that wall, 4 generations of aunts, uncles, and cousins, had died at exactly 50 years old, except Delilah. I grew up watching my relatives drop dead on their 50th birthdays like clockwork. They would go to sleep the night before and simply never wake up, leaving behind perfectly penned farewell letters written in their final, drowsy days. Everyone called it the family curse, a ticking time bomb hidden deep in our DNA. But why was Delilah, at 78, the only person in our bloodline to survive it? I waited for death, and it never came, she would say, sounding genuinely puzzled. Maybe I was spared so I could guide the rest of you through the transition. This time was different, though. This time, it was my mom. And when Delilah finally left the room, my mom grabbed my hand with a grip so tight it bruised my skin. "I'm not ready," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I want to see you get married. I want to meet my grandkids. Maybe you won't die," I pleaded, holding back tears. "Maybe you'll be like Delilah. No one else has ever lived past 50, she cried. Except Great Aunt Estelle. And you know what happened to her? I did know. Estelle made it to 51, and everyone thought the curse was finally broken. But 2 days later, Estelle's daughter died suddenly. Estelle followed the very next day. Delilah claimed the curse had taken them both because Estelle had disrupted the natural order by cheating death. That night, something inside me snapped. I couldn't just sit by and watch my mother fade away into a statistic. I started digging into our family history, scouring online records, and immediately hit a wall. There were absolutely no mysterious deaths at 50 before Delilah's generation. Delilah's own parents had lived well into their 70s. The pattern only started with Delilah's husband, who died on his 50th birthday, right after Delilah inherited the family estate. I waited until midnight, crept out of my room, and picked the lock to Delilah's private study. Inside, I found the farewell letters from every dead relative. They were all in different handwriting, but something felt incredibly wrong. Every letter mentioned feeling inexplicably exhausted in their final days. Every letter thanked Delilah for her comforting care. Then, I found the death certificate from my mom's sister, Grace. It listed her age of death as 50, but there was no cause of death, no hospital stamp, just Delilah's signature as the sole witness. I ran a quick internet search for Grace Calgary. 5 minutes later, I found a matching name living in Oregon, age 58. My hands shook as I dialed the number. A woman answered on the second ring. "Is this Grace Calgary?" I asked. A long pause. "Who's asking?" "I'm your niece," I breathed out. "Everyone thinks you're dead." "Good," she replied sharply. "Let them. How did you survive the curse?" I begged. "I left the mansion the night before my birthday," Grace said, her voice dropping to a terrified whisper. "I started getting sick a month before. Exhausted, confused, always cold. It went away as soon as I left that house." She told me she had tried to warn Estelle. Estelle's daughter had overheard and started snooping in Delilah's room looking for answers. That was why they died. Delilah had killed them to protect her secret. Over the next few weeks, I watched my mother deteriorate right before my eyes. Delilah started feeding her special herbal drinks to ease the transition. Mom grew painfully thin, her skin turning a translucent gray. She was always tired. Delilah said the body simply knew its time was coming. I knew better. While Delilah was out at her weekly book club, I snuck into the transition suite and found a locked cabinet hidden in the back of the closet. I smashed the hinges with a heavy brass bookend. Inside were medical supplies, syringes, vials of clear liquid, and a thick leather notebook tracking dosages for every deceased family member. The latest entry had my mom's name, building tolerance. Increase gradually. I took photos of everything. I even photographed the insurance policies I found stuffed in the back. Millions of dollars paying out exclusively to Delilah after every single death. But when I went to the police, they practically laughed me out of the station. Suspicious deaths from decades ago, with no bodies to exhume, couldn't be investigated without hard, undeniable proof. I had to take matters into my own hands. I bought a hidden security camera disguised as a phone charger and plugged it into the wall directly facing my mom's bed. Then, I managed to swipe a sample of Delilah's herbal drink and took it to a private toxicology lab. The days blurred into a waking nightmare. Mom was getting progressively weaker. She had even started writing her farewell letter, with Delilah sitting right beside her, practically dictating the words. I accept my fate peacefully. It made me sick to my stomach. Delilah was scripting the suicide note that would clear her of murder. When the lab results finally came back, my blood ran cold. The drink was laced with a lethal cocktail of benzodiazepines and heavy sedatives. The lab tech explained that if taken in gradually increasing doses, it would cause extreme drowsiness, mental fog, and eventually, respiratory failure. A person would simply go to sleep and stop breathing. It was perfectly designed to mimic natural death, completely undetectable unless a medical examiner knew exactly what specific toxicology screen to run. Armed with the scientific data, I finally secured a meeting with a detective named Ridley, who actually listened. When I showed him the lab results, the photos of the dosage notebook, and the hidden camera footage of Delilah slipping drugs into my mom's IV, he sat up straight. "This is good," Detective Ridley said grimly. "But to put her away forever, we need her in the act. We need video of her administering the fatal dose, and we need paramedics on the scene immediately to establish an official medical record of the active poisoning. Mom's 50th birthday was tomorrow. We were completely out of time. I called my Aunt Grace, who immediately booked a flight from Oregon to help. We mapped out a military-grade extraction plan. I would wait inside the house, monitoring the hidden camera feed from my phone. Grace would wait in a rental car near the mansion's back gate. The moment Delilah made her lethal move, I would call 911, and we would storm the room. At 9 p.m., the night before my mother's 50th birthday, my phone screen lit up. Delilah entered the transition suite carrying a silver tray. Sitting next to a glass of water was a syringe filled with clear liquid. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I dialed 911. I am reporting an attempted murder in progress at my address. I whispered rapidly to the dispatcher, sprinting up the stairs two at a time, making no effort to hide my footsteps anymore. I could hear Delilah's soothing, venomous voice bleeding through the heavy oak door. "This will help you rest, sweetie. The transition is almost complete." I burst into the room just as Delilah was reaching for my mother's IV line, the needle inches from the port. Delilah froze. The mask of the sweet, grieving matriarch shattered instantly, replaced by something cold, hollow, and utterly terrifying. She realized in a fraction of a second that she was caught. "What are you doing?" Delilah hissed, backing away slightly. "You are upsetting your mother! This is comfort care!" "Drop the syringe," I screamed, holding my phone up to record her, the 911 dispatcher's voice echoing loudly from the speaker. Grace shoved past me into the room, panting heavily. Delilah's eyes widened in pure, unfiltered horror as she stared at the daughter she thought she had successfully murdered 8 years ago. "You," Delilah whispered, her hand trembling so badly she nearly dropped the needle. Before she could make another move, the wail of sirens ripped through the quiet estate. Paramedics charged up the stairs minutes later, followed closely by armed police officers. A hospice nurse named Mallory, who Delilah had hired as a cover, but whom I had secretly flipped to our side, rushed in and immediately secured the syringe and the vials as untampered evidence. "She poisoned her!" I yelled to the paramedics. "Benzodiazepines and heavy sedatives! Run a full talk screen right now!" They loaded my confused, crying mother onto a stretcher. I rode with her in the back of the ambulance, holding her hand tightly as we sped away from that house of horrors for the last time. Looking out the back window, I saw Detective Ridley snapping heavy steel handcuffs onto Delilah's wrists. At the hospital, the emergency room doctors pushed intravenous fluids and ran the specialized blood panels. The results were undeniable. Mom had massive amounts of sedatives in her system, enough that the final dose Delilah was about to inject would have undoubtedly stopped her heart before midnight. Delilah was denied bail. Once the police executed a search warrant on the mansion, they found absolutely everything. The medical textbooks highlighting untraceable poisons, the decades of dosage notebooks, the insurance records proving she had collected millions upon millions of dollars over 40 years. They are now reopening the cases of every single family member who had ever died on their 50th birthday. It took weeks for the drugs to fully leave my mother's system. The first time she was completely lucid, we sat in the kitchen of our new, highly secure rental house. She looked out the window, watching the morning sunrise, a cup of coffee trembling slightly in her hands. "I'm 50. She whispered, tears spilling over her cheeks as a massive weight lifted off her shoulders. "I'm 50, and I'm still here." There was no family curse. There was no genetic ticking time bomb. There was just a greedy, psychotic woman who decided her own flesh and blood was worth more dead than alive. And as for me, I broke the curse. I saved my mother's life. And I'm going to make sure Delilah spends the rest of her miserable life rotting in a concrete cell where no family member will ever have to transition under her care again.